You picture a princess born into a life of golden crowns and castles. But that's not exactly how it started. On a spring morning in 1926, a girl was born at 17 Bruton Street in Mayfair, London. Her name was Elizabeth Alexandra Mary. Her father was the Duke of York, not yet king, and her mother was Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyons. They were royals, sure, but not the people telling the world what to do. They were next in line. Elizabeth was the first child. Her little sister, Margaret, came 2 years later. They were ordinary kids in some ways. They rode bicycles, they played with their dogs, they had lessons and tutors. But they also had strict etiquette, balls and dinners and suits and hats. And every day there was this quiet reminder. Their lives weren't their own. She grew up shy but dutiful. Then, in 1936, something unbelievable happened. Her uncle, King Edward VIII, gave up the throne voluntarily. He chose love over duty. He wanted to marry an American divorcee, and Britain said no. The crown passed to Elizabeth's father. Suddenly, little Elizabeth was now the heir. Imagine that shift. One day you're just a princess. The next day, your whole life, every decision is about the future of an empire. When World War II broke out, she didn't just sit in a palace and sign papers. At 18, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service and trained as a mechanic and driver, a princess in boots, working tools, doing a job most women her age would never have imagined. That choice mattered. It wasn't just symbolic. It meant she knew what service felt like, what real work was, what the world outside Buckingham Palace looked like. So when the war ended, she didn't just walk back into royal life. She walked ahead of it. It changed her. After the war, she met Philip Mountbatten. He was naval. He was sharp. He was charismatic. They fell in love. In 1947, they married at Westminster Abbey, a ceremony broadcast on radio that reconnected Britain to peace after years of conflict. She was just 21. Philip became her partner for the rest of her life, more than 70 years together. They had children, Charles, Anne, Andrew, Edward, and as she became a mother, she also prepared for something none of them expected. Her father, King George VI, had been strong and steady, but his health was fragile. The world watched and waited. Then, on February 6, 1952, he died. In a heartbeat, Elizabeth was queen at 25. Not crowned yet, not ready, just queen. The weight of history landed on her shoulders, and she didn't flinch. One of the most iconic moments of her early reign wasn't a battle. It was an image. On June 2nd, 1953, Elizabeth was crowned at Westminster Abbey. But this wasn't just another royal procession. This was the first coronation ever televised. 20 million people watched at home, millions more around the world. Suddenly, the ancient British monarchy was a part of everyday living rooms. That wasn't just spectacle. That was cultural shift. Television brought her into the hearts of her people. She didn't have to speak. She just had to be there. And that image, the crown, the robes, the guards, the pageantry, offered something the world was starving for after war: continuity, stability, endurance. Elizabeth didn't know it yet. But that coronation would be the first chapter of a reign unlike any other, a reign that refused to stop. Being sovereign wasn't just about waving from balconies in fancy gowns. It quickly became political. Elizabeth had to navigate a world reshaped by war and geopolitics. Empires were collapsing. Colonies were demanding independence. New nations were forming. Britain was finding a new place in the world. She didn't rule governments. She ruled hearts and the idea of unity. She became head of the Commonwealth, a group of former colonies and realms that wanted cooperation more than domination. She became a symbol of hope, a figure that stood above party politics. That was her art, quiet, slow, dependable. And the world needed it. Because between the Cold War and the troubles in Northern Ireland, between economic ups and downs and cultural revolutions, Elizabeth was there every year, every decade, every crisis. Her voice became familiar no matter the nation, even for people who had never met her in person. That steadiness mattered, truly. From the outside, it looked calm. Same wave, same voice, same walk. But behind the scenes, the world kept shifting, and Queen Elizabeth had to shift with it carefully. Not loudly, not emotionally, just steady. That was her style. While presidents came and went, she stayed. She met with Winston Churchill as a young queen. She would go on to meet every British prime minister after that, from Thatcher to Blair to Johnson, 15 in total. Every week, a private meeting. No cameras, no transcripts. Nobody knows what they talked about, but everyone agrees those conversations mattered. She also met 13 United States presidents, starting with Truman. She sat with them, walked with them, dined with them, and even though she technically ruled none of them, they all treated her like a global leader. Because she was. Not elected, not appointed, but respected. For her restraint, her consistency, her symbolism. She was the institution. But nothing challenged her more than her own family. And when you live under a microscope, family stuff becomes national drama. Her children were grown now, and the press had a new obsession: the next generation, Charles and Diana. At first it looked like a royal fairy tale. Young Diana, big wedding, 2 sons, William and Harry. But the marriage crumbled, and so did the public image. Affairs, leaked phone calls, tabloids running wild. The Queen didn't comment. She never did. That was her rule. If you never explain, never complain. But by the mid-90s, it was clear the royal brand was in trouble. Divorces were piling up, and the people started asking, do we still need the monarchy? It all hit the boiling point in 1997. Diana died in a car crash in Paris. And for once, the Queen didn't know what to do. When the news broke, the country broke too. People cried in the streets. They brought flowers to Buckingham Palace. They wanted a speech, a flag, a sign. But the palace stayed silent. For 5 whole days. The Queen stayed in Scotland with the boys William and Harry, trying to protect them from the chaos. She thought that was the right move. Private grief, quiet dignity. But the public didn't agree. People started shouting, "Where is the Queen?" That moment was rare. It shook her, and eventually she adjusted. She gave a speech. She bowed her head as Diana's coffin passed. She understood something new. The world had changed. And if the monarchy wanted to survive, it had to adapt too. Even as she aged, Queen Elizabeth never really slowed down. She kept doing her red boxes of official documents every day. She kept attending events, rain or shine. And she kept being the glue for a family that kept making headlines. Scandals with Prince Andrew. Tabloid wars with Harry and Meghan. A monarchy stuck between tradition and modern life. But through it all, she never lashed out, never tweeted, never broke. Because for her, the job was never about being popular. It was about being reliable, about showing up no matter what. She gave speeches only when she needed to. Her words were measured, calm, slightly formal, almost soothing. During COVID, when the country was locked down and scared, she appeared on screen and simply said, "We will meet again." It wasn't flashy, but it landed. That's the kind of power she had. Not loud, not viral, but solid. By her 90s, Queen Elizabeth wasn't just old. She was the oldest monarch in British history, but she never acted retired. Every day, she still worked. She still took those red boxes, still met with ambassadors, still walked with her signature handbag even when she barely needed anything in it. That handbag meant something. It meant I'm still on duty. But behind the scenes, the royal family was shifting again. In 2020, Harry and Meghan announced they were stepping back from royal duties. The press called it Megxit. But to the Queen, it was more than headlines. Harry was her grandson. She loved him. But she also loved the institution. And those two things were now pulling in opposite directions. The couple gave a shocking interview with Oprah, talked about racism, mental health, said they felt unsupported. And again, the world looked to Buckingham Palace. The Queen released a statement. Simple, tight. Recollections may vary. She didn't clap back. She didn't defend every detail. She just said, "We'll handle this privately." And that was the thing about her. When everything went public, she went private. When things were loud, she stayed quiet. That silence wasn't passive. It was her version of control. Then, in April 2021, her partner of over 70 years passed away. Prince Philip, 99 years old. The man who had walked beside her since before she was queen. The man who stepped back so she could step forward. At his funeral, she sat alone, socially distanced, masked, in the front pew. It was a powerful image. A woman who had held the crown for nearly 70 years, now sitting by herself. No crown, no fanfare, just a widow. It broke people's hearts, but it also reminded them she was human. Behind the symbols, behind the traditions, she was a person who loved and lost like everyone else. In 2022, Britain celebrated her Platinum Jubilee. 70 years on the throne. 70. That had never happened before. Parades, street parties, flags, concerts. She didn't attend every event. Her health was fragile now. But she appeared on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, wearing green, smiling, waving that same slow wave. She looked tired, but proud. And in a way, that weekend felt like a soft goodbye. She was handing the country a moment to celebrate her, just in case she wouldn't be there much longer. And the people felt it too. Even those who didn't care for royalty, they respected her. Because she'd been there forever. September 8th, 2022. Buckingham Palace released a short statement. Doctors were concerned for Her Majesty's health. She was at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. By evening, it was official. Queen Elizabeth II had died. She was 96. The news hit like a wave. Even though she was old, even though people had been quietly preparing, it still felt unreal. Because she'd always been there. Most people in the United Kingdom and the world had never known life without her. She was the face on their money, the voice in their Christmas broadcasts, the figure in the background of every major world event. And suddenly, she was gone. The tributes came instantly, from presidents, prime ministers, celebrities, citizens, but also from people who never cared about monarchy. Because this wasn't just about the crown. It was about her, her service, her presence, her dedication. 70 years. Over 30,000 public engagements. Hundreds of countries visited. Thousands of hands shaken. And never, not once, a meltdown in public. She never quit. She never ducked the job. Even in her final days, she met with a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, 2 days before she died. That was her last official act, swearing in the leader of the country, with a cane in one hand and duty in the other. Her funeral was massive. A state funeral, the first since Winston Churchill. The entire world tuned in. Thousands lined the streets. Millions watched from home. The moment her coffin passed Buckingham Palace, her staff stood outside and bowed. Even her personal pony and her corgis were there. It was all incredibly British. Quiet, precise, emotional in its stillness. But the real emotion came when her coffin was lowered into the vault, bagpipes playing, cameras silent. That was the end, the real end, of the longest reign in British history. Queen Elizabeth didn't write books. She didn't post videos. She didn't rant on TV. But her presence changed the way people saw leadership. She reminded the world that sometimes power doesn't mean shouting or trending or trying to be relatable. Sometimes it just means showing up every day, no matter what. She lived through war, peace, crisis, scandal, and complete culture shifts. She adapted quietly, led carefully, spoke rarely, but her silence often said more than words. And even as debates continue about the role of the monarchy, one thing is clear. There won't be another like her. At her coronation in 1953, she promised a lifetime of service. Not 10 years, not 30. Her whole life, she kept that promise, right until the very end. And for that, millions around the world said the same 3 words. Thank you, ma'am. If you completed this shadowing exercise, you're doing it right. This is how fluency is built. Repetition and consistency. Keep shadowing like this, stay consistent, and your English will improve naturally. If this video helped you, I'd appreciate a like or a subscribe.